pienso que te fuches, negra sombra que...
The 33rd edition of Rimini's Meeting took off today. This year's theme is By Nature, Man's Relation to the Infinite. The Pope sent a message to welcome the grand opening, which was received by Father Carone, president of the Communion and Liberation Movement. 100 meetings, 281 lectures, 9 shows, 3,300 volunteers from 20 countries, and 800,000 visitors. One of the first events was the visit of Italian Prime Minister Mario Monti, where he met with culture representatives, politicians, and entrepreneurs. But there's also a lot of room for fun, with 21 shows, 10 film screenings, and 23 sporting events. Italian Prime Minister Mario Monti said, "I'm used to speaking about crisis, but as I look at you today, I wonder if we're truly in a crisis." With these words, Monti quickly connected with Rimini's audience. There was uninterrupted applause as he walked to the auditorium for the official inauguration. Waiting in the audience was Emilia Guarnieri from the Communion and Liberation Movement. She read a statement from Italian President Giorgio Napolitano, which said in part, "The meeting explains the consciousness of a common responsibility to identify new development models." These words were followed by Giorgio Vittadini, who talked about the need to nurture the seed of this country and to reclaim the pleasure of beauty and the love for living life. But for that to happen, policies that look towards the future are needed, said Monti. He then added that a generational reform is needed to end the privileges that have existed in these last years. Monti spoke to the public after visiting an exhibit dedicated to the crisis, which models people as the trigger for growth. He then spoke about education, employment, politics, and of course growth. So from Rimini's meeting, Monti showed a full effort to give things a fresh start. Shodo Habukawa is a Buddhist spiritual leader. During Rimini's meeting, he showed a photograph of Father Giussani from the Communion and Liberation Movement. He said that ever since his friend's death, he's carried that picture to pray. They met back in 1987, and afterwards the monk was invited to the Rimini meeting. He was impressed from the start and has become a regular visitor ever since. Last year, a sub-Rimini meeting took place in Japan, which included a delegation from Mount Koya, where Habukawa's monastery is located. For 5 days, they discussed religion and mankind's relationship with the infinite, two different worlds that together analyze destiny and mystery, all in an effort to be true to themselves. Inside the exhibit dedicated to Mount Koya, monks kneel to pray, even amid the chaos of the meeting. From Japan to Egypt, the meeting is becoming more international. That includes a second edition in Cairo from November 2nd to the 4th. After years of protests, the topic of discussion in Egypt will be freedom. It's a friendship that continues and a story that's now open to the world.
Domenica di sangue in Nigeria per i cristiani, colpite 2 chiese durante la messa, 9 morti e decine di feriti.
Terrorist group Boko Haram is accused of yet another attack that happened during a Sunday Mass in Nigeria. These type of attacks have killed roughly 600 people since the month of January. Nigerian Bishop Ignatius Kaigana attended Rimini to talk about living his faith in his country. He said the violence in our country is not because of religious reasons, but because of corruption and the absence of a strong political authority. He added that Christian people are increasingly desperate, especially the young, who are tempted to respond with violence. But the most effective weapon, according to the bishop, is prayer and the presence of the church. And now, after his first visit to the Rimini meeting, he says he's now more convinced than ever. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. Those who believe that Latin Americans' independence was a product of the French Revolution must open their eyes to new horizons. This is the topic of Utopia and Meaning, 2 flags of Latin Americans' independence, 1808 to 1824, opening new perspectives by leaving prejudices behind. The journey of Latin Americans' independence has had a decisive influence in Catholicism, which has been kept silent for too long. As Latin America celebrates 200 years of independence, this exhibit, Utopia and Meaning, shows the true significance behind this human journey. It's a journey that does justice to its protagonist, leading questions about the current situation, including the limits and possibilities of changing society by using faith and truth as the main weapon. The cry for rock and roll could be described as the cry of the human heart, to go beyond the surface of words and music to find the infinite. John Waters from the Irish Times and writer Alberto Savarana discussed this during the meeting. But what exactly can rock and roll teach us about the infinite and the desire for truth? From the basics of blues to the heart of traditional music, Waters had this encounter when he was just 17 years old, after hearing a song from T-Rex. He said, quote, "It sparked something inside me that I never knew existed." Perhaps it was intuition, but from that time on, that rock and roll song came to represent a cry of mankind. It's something that went far beyond appearances.
The business of
No doubt there are businesses, advertising, attitudes, narcissism, egocentrism, but underneath there is something else, and that is the heart-to-heart communication. This music is made by people that expresses a human desire and a human attempt. An attempt that sometimes is dramatic, like the death of Amy Winehouse, who died at the age of 27, and the story of those who live on, like Bono, Springsteen, Cohen, and Bob Dylan. But the question is, why? Perhaps they know that music is much more than just entertaining, but it can open the door to the infinite. It's a scene that includes 50 artists, both Christians and Muslims, from the Lebanese company Caracalla Dance Theater. The week of nightly shows opens with the Villagers Opera, directed by Abdel Halim Caracalla. The founder combines unique dance techniques, linking the East with the West. In doing so, he bears witness to how different worlds can come together without losing their identity. There's also a tribute to guitar master Andres Segovia, who plays Bible verses to the rhythm of flamenco music. Also the Vespers played by the choir of St. Petersburg. And let's not forget a puppet show by company Carlo Cola and jazz music by Gianacci Paolo, son of the great Enzo.